Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is well and everyone can hear me. Um, Wherever you are today, hope you're having a good day. I'm currently based in Arklow and it's nice and sunny out right by the sea, so hope everyone's somewhere nice. I think we will start now, and if we have people join over the next few minutes, that's fine. Welcome to everyone who is here already, and thank you so much for being here. We know that your time is precious, and so we have come up with what we think is going to be the most beneficial content for you over the next 45 minutes or so. Our topic today is a big one. I think I can safely say that everyone attending today has had at least one scam text over the last few months, showing just how prominent mobile scams have actually become. Now, as Vodafone customers, you're likely to think of us as a telco. But we at Vodafone recognize that just providing you with mobile phones, mobile plans, even network plans, it's not really going to cut it anymore. So over the last 12 months or so, we've been developing our software offering. And one of those partnerships is with Lookout Mobile Security. But before I do move on, let me introduce myself. As the screen showed there, my name is Nick. I work as part of the software specialist team here for Vodafone Business. And my area of focus is to help our sales teams in providing the right solution for you and your business when it comes to cloud and cybersecurity. I've been in Vodafone for just less than 1 year, though I have been working in software sales one way or another for the past 10 years. Joining me today is Hank from Lookout. Hank, do you want to give a quick intro on yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for the intro. Thanks for having me, guys. We're very excited to be joining today. And so my name is Hank Schless. I'm based in Boston in the United States, and it is also a sunny day here. So we at least got that in common. No, very excited to be here. I run the product marketing organization at Lookout, which basically means that me and my team take all the very complex and in-depth security stuff that Lookout does, and we translate it to be, understandable and consumable for everybody to know the protection they're getting from the mobile endpoint security solution that we offer, which is just part of what we offer. But we're very excited. Vodafone is one of our favorite partners, and over the course of I've been here for just over 5 years. It's been very cool to see this relationship blossom. So we're excited to be here, excited to be launching this in another country with you guys.
Awesome. Cheers, Hank. And I've just noticed we're both wearing blue shirts, like it's blue shirt day.
Hey,
obviously.
we got the memo.
All right, so we can break down our session today into, I guess, 3 main parts, right? So first, I'm going to give you a brief intro to Lookout, what it does, who it's for, why it's important, right? And then Hank is going to dive deeper into the product itself, run you through the ins and outs of the functionality and the features, and then lastly, we will have some time for a Q&A at the end. If you do want to interact with us during the presentation, by all means, there should be a little question mark button somewhere on your screens, which gives you the option to ask a question, but we will have that Q&A at the end. So let's begin. I suppose I wanted to break down this intro into a few different parts, right? And the first is, why is Lookout important, especially in the Irish market? And I want to start by answering that, but with a little bit of context. Why on earth are scammers and hackers trying to infiltrate our mobile phones, right? Typically in the past, it was a thing of trying to get into our servers, trying to get into our computers, into our laptops. And the answer is simply ease. We've all heard the expression, work smarter, not harder. And that's kind of the basis of why mobile threats have emerged so much over the last number of years. It's just easier. Hackers, scammers, ransomware artists, whatever you want to call them, these people are not just sitting alone in their bedrooms anymore. They are multi-billion-dollar organizations all over the world with corporate hierarchies, just like a normal business would have. They're well-oiled, they're well-funded, and they're extremely effective. Now, their goal is to get money, right? One way or another. Either They're going to play the long game with a complex step-by-step process. They target you maybe through social media or a link. They lure you into clicking something which installs something called spyware onto your device. And from there, they just sort of patiently sit and wait. You, as a user, you don't notice that anything is out of the ordinary. But the scary bit is we all likely access our business email on our phones, right? I'd say we all do. Meaning that since the spyware is there, they now have access. They can see our email, our password, and they have access then to our business productivity platform. So this is the scary part, right? They place some malicious script or ransomware into SharePoint or Google Drive or whatever it might be, and they wait, right? They wait for someone to click it. Game over. And it is that simple. Though these types of breaches, they don't happen over the space of a few minutes, could be days, could be weeks, could be months until you realize that something is wrong. Or a hacker might move in a more direct way, right? They call you and they impersonate someone from your bank. Like the step above, right? They have installed some spyware onto your device, and they can see then from that piece of software that you have the Bank of Ireland app on your phone. And they use that information to impersonate someone actually working for Bank of Ireland. They call you and they ask you to change your account details or make a payment. Or maybe it's a numbers game. They could send out hundreds of thousands of the same text message and hope that by delivering in volume, some of these recipients don't realize and click on the link and they complete whatever payment terms or whatever they've put in front of you. I'm sure that we've all got a text from AIB, from eFlow, from DPD, telling us to update our payment information or pay an outstanding bill. They can be really convincing as well. I nearly got caught with one from eFlow until I realized, actually, I'm not even with eFlow, I use EasyTrip. But they're so convincing. But they know, right? Hackers know that we are not as focused when we are on our phones. We might be on the move, we're out and about, our defenses are down. It's not the same as sitting at a desk in front of a laptop. Another common threat is profiling, right? And if a hacker has access to your personal info, they can build a profile on you. And they can do this because they have access to not only, your phone numbers, contacts, name, they could even have your date of birth, even your photographs. And that's quite a scary prospect. A simple Netflix password is worth €3 to hackers. And imagine the volume of people being breached each and every day, and you begin to kind of see the value in this. A mid-market CEO's personal information can be worth up to €6,000 on the dark web. Hackers will even go as far as targeting business owners' home networks, knowing that they access their business data from home. And this can all originate, and oftentimes does originate, from hacker gaining access to information that was on your mobile phone. So how does it then protect against these kind of attacks? What does Lookout do? Well, Lookout looks out for you, right? In short, Lookout is actively protecting you from clicking these dodgy links, or giving you as a business more control over how your phone is used, how users interact with the phone. And it's all in an attempt to make sure that the phone fleet that you have is as safe as it possibly can be. I'm not going to go into all the details on how it works now. I'll leave that to Hank. But we all grew up at some stage, right? If you think about it this way, we all grew up at some stage with parents or older sisters or older brothers or whatever telling us, don't do that. Maybe it was when you're about to do something silly or something stupid, jump out of a tree, which I did many times. Anyway, they didn't want you to get hurt, is what I'm saying. They were looking out for you. And this is essentially what Lookout does. It sits in the background, just monitoring and assessing what you're doing. If it thinks you're going to do something stupid, like click a dodgy link, it'll stop you. If your phone isn't safely up to date, it'll notify you. It's not only protecting you as a user, though, it is protecting your business. It's protecting against the threats that are adamant on getting into your business's data. So essentially, it's limiting the attack surface, making it harder for hackers to find any entry points. And I suppose in terms of what businesses is it good for, it's not just big businesses that this is crucial for. It's small businesses too. Arguably, the small business owner is more at risk here because probably like many of you on the call, it's your lifeblood. If your business stopped, what do you do? Do you have a failover plan? I always say that prevention is better than cure. The cure in many cases is paying a ransom to these people. I was going to say a bad word there. But a lot of businesses are not in a position to pay these ransoms. In fact, a study showed that of all companies that have been held at ransom, over 70% of them tried to find a way to pay and weren't able to. And some of the larger businesses repeatedly paid. They paid several ransoms. Sadly, over 20% of businesses who have been hit by ransomware do go out of business in the 6 months following. These are just the stats. So mobile security is an absolute necessity for businesses of all sizes. And one additional point I'd like to make here is that in Ireland, we have to adhere to strict GDPR laws. These laws are there as part of a kind of, what's the word? I'm looking for a word, but these laws essentially state that we as businesses need to collect, manage, and store our information in a safe way. We have to protect that information specifically from accidental loss, from destruction or damage. Now, I can't imagine any business that is fully GDPR compliant in Ireland, but that hasn't stopped EU regulators slapping hefty fines on Irish companies for breaching these regulations. Spyware, malware, ransomware, these are all breaches of GDPR, and these are all things that Lookout actually protects against. But I think now is probably a good time for you to hear a bit more about Lookout and what it really does. So what I'm going to do is pass you across to Hank, who's going to take a deeper dive into the product, how it works. But I challenge you all to think about areas where you could be more secure, right? While listening to Hank and Hank giving examples, ask yourself, is this something that we're doing today, or is it something that we plan to implement in the future? So Hank, I'll pass it across to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. And that was a great introduction. As you can all understand, there's a reason Lookout's here. I think that one of the biggest misconceptions that people have is that their mobile is safe. I think one thing that Apple in particular does a very good job of is saying, hey, our devices are more secure. Nothing can happen on them. And I think that since we all have such trust in these devices, we assume that they're safe because they're such an extension of ourselves. So by admitting that they are not secure, we're almost in a way admitting that we are not secure, and no one wants to be imperfect. So there are many philosophical ways you can look at it, but that was a great overview, Nick. Thank you very much. We're going to dive into a few things here, a little bit more about Lookout, why we do what we do, how we do what we do, and what you can do to sort of take some proactive steps and look at the mobile risk factor as something to think about from both a personal and business standpoint. So Lookout has been for a very long time the recognized market leader in mobile security. So as I mentioned, I've been here for a bit over 5 years, but the company actually started as a consumer mobile security company well over a decade ago. And in that time has essentially built we brought the idea of mobile security to market. In that time, we have built the world's largest security data set for mobile devices and mobile apps. And what that means is that we basically have the most mobile security data of anybody. There may be very large companies out there who have more what we call traditional endpoint security data for things like laptops and desktops. When it comes to mobile, no one matches Lookout. And the great thing about that is that it means that we have the ability to detect malicious software, as Nick was describing, malicious phishing links. We have a security intelligence team that tracks all of this stuff with both automated and human-driven processes. And everything that we see every app that gets released. I mean, it's just an insane amount of data, and that all backs up the security solution that we're providing to you. So when it comes to protecting that mobile vector, there really isn't anyone who can do it as well as us. And I say that confidently not just because I work here. So the second piece is that threat intelligence piece. Now, this might seem a bit like spy games to some people, but the fact is that we have a fantastic team of researchers who are constantly combing through the data that we have, through other data sources, to understand and detect the latest in malicious threat actor tactics, right? And this could be something as simple as a new phishing attack that leverages a combination of an SMS message followed by a call from somebody who sounds like they might be from your IT department, or maybe from a solution provider that you use. You know, these people, these threat actors go online, they look you up on LinkedIn, they look up, even if you only have one IT person, even if you have none, they can figure out pretty easily maybe what tools your company uses, or what bank you use, or all these other things, where they can pretend to be someone from there and say, hey, we recognized a weird login. Could you please follow the link that I just sent you via SMS and re-enter your login credentials so that we can get you in and get this all taken care of? Yeah, sure. I want to make sure my business keeps rolling. I don't want to run into any issues. And suddenly you've given up your login credentials to a threat actor. So it's important to understand what's going on out there, what those latest tactics are, and what people are doing to basically trick all of us into giving up our login credentials, which in my opinion are kind of the most important thing these days. We do have, especially with Vodafone, a very heavy small to medium business focus. The great thing about this is that we have our enterprise mobile security solution, but we actually I think about 2 years ago now, released basically a version of it focused on the small business. And the goal here is that we want to be able to provide the same level of protection, which we do. It's across the board. It's the same level of protection. It's the same amount of security, but do so in a way that is more consumable for a smaller business, right? If you have a family-owned business, maybe it's only a dozen of you or 75 of you, and maybe you have someone in IT who kind of oversees things more generally. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how a majority of businesses across the world function. But we wanted to make sure that there was a way for you to be able to protect those mobile devices without all the complexity that might come and be manageable by a team of 8 or 10 IT or security folks. And then finally, the mobile endpoint security is only part of our solution. We do have a cloud security solution as well. We call this endpoint to cloud security. The idea being that the mobile device and our cloud apps are so tightly integrated these days that we want to be able to protect you from the start of it, which is the endpoint, all the way up to the data that it's accessing in the cloud. So there are a few reasons that we see there to be a need for mobile security. The first is that, as we've mentioned, the majority of mobile devices are pretty unprotected. We trust them to be safe. We trust them too much. And for that reason, a lot of times they're overlooked when it comes to planning for mobile security. The second is that today, more than half of the devices that your employees use to access company, there's a missing word there, company data, are mobile devices, right? So Nick mentioned, accessing your work email, but I mean, personally, hey, I've got this thing right here, and I access Workday, I access Google Drive, I access God knows what else on here, Slack, all these tools that people use where you share information. There is personal information about yourself and other people within your company that would be incredibly valuable to somebody who wants to either hold it for ransom or just take it and sell it on the dark web. It's not that tough for them to do it. The third thing is that nowadays we're seeing that phishing attacks really are focused on mobile. There's a smaller screen. There are fewer ways for you to be able to kind of detect some of those red flags that you may know to look out for on a desktop. A lot of times attackers will do things like replace a capital I with a lowercase l, right? If someone's trying to phish Lookout, they may send one of our employees a URL that's www.capitalout.com rather than an L. Looks all the same on mobile. So it's easier to trick people and get them to think that they're entering a legitimate site or legitimate login portal. Then this is second to last here. The visibility piece is really important, right? A lot of people say, well, mobile is never an issue. It's never, no one ever attacks it because they don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? So being able to understand what your security posture is on those mobile devices is critical. And then finally, as Nick mentioned, the cybersecurity frameworks, compliance frameworks are now requiring protection of mobile data and of mobile devices. In the United States, we have HIPAA as our main healthcare compliance standard that actually specifically calls out, because there's so many nurses and doctors that access health records on iPads at bedside. It's now being specifically called out that people need to secure those devices in order to make sure that that data is safe. So the mobile threat landscape, this is an interesting thing to look at because, again, people don't really think about this that much. I think people still think of, you click on an email and suddenly there's a big skull and crossbones across your computer screen and someone's telling you to pay them money, but the reality is that that's changed a lot. So what are all the potential entry points on a mobile device, right? First, let's look at what can come through web and content, really phishing-focused attacks. Any app that you have that has messaging functionality can be an avenue for an attacker to deliver a phishing attack. There's also harmful web content, right? You want to be able to make sure that your employees can't access certain types of websites, whether that's gambling or dark web or other bad things that you don't want in the workplace. You want to be able to control that. You want to make sure that those websites that are usually more likely to be compromised can't be accessed, but also for creating a work environment where people aren't sharing illicit content is something that's important to everyone. The third one here is scanning QR codes. This is one that was big during COVID, and nowadays it continues on. We see them everywhere. They're becoming more prominent. You see them slapped on the sides of telephone poles. You see them used in ads for major sporting events. They're everywhere, and they can be just as likely to lead to a phishing site as they can to a legitimate site. Next is all of the apps that you have. So the important thing to think about here is where are two things. One, what types of data do these apps access? So you need that visibility to understand that. And second, where is that data going? Because you talk about GDPR, you talk about protecting personal data, and if you have a certain social media app pictured here that has been brought under question for how it collects personal data and what it does with it, you would probably want to understand exactly what types of IP addresses that app is connecting to, the potential of where that data could be going, and what could get you out of compliance with various standards. So it's important to understand that. So got one step ahead of myself there. And then multi-factor authentication. So I think everybody, regardless of if you're a massive organization or a 10-person mom and pop shop, you have been asked, hey, would you like to enable 2FA or MFA or something like that on your device? You go to log into a service, it sends you a text message, and you enter that code in there to log in. You want to make sure it's actually you. Here's the thing, is that attackers know that the mobile device is the most common second form of authentication. So what they'll do now is that they will, and we actually have seen this a lot recently, there's a group called Scattered Spider, which last year was able to breach MGM and Caesars casinos in Las Vegas here in the United States, costing them, I think they cost Caesars about $100 million and MGM about $35 million. The way that they did that was that they went on LinkedIn, they found the IT and engineering or IT and security team. They reached out to them with a fake text message that said, your Okta, which is one of these single sign-on solutions, your Okta login has expired. Please click here to reset it. The person clicked it, reset their password, then entered the token that's provided, the one-time password token. And then suddenly the bad guys sitting in the back end of all that, watching it all happen, had access to all of that, and it was that simple. This is really a concern these days because it's, everyone should have multi-factor authentication. They have finally figured out a way to work their way around it, which is never a good sign. Then the operating system level, right? Outdated operating systems are are a real problem. Pretty much every update that you have these days has to do with an out-of-date operating system. If you actually read, I personally have an iPhone, so it says, okay, iOS, whatever version is coming out. If you actually read the notes that they say, it's pretty much always, we are fixing a vulnerability in this particular app or in this particular part of the device because somebody found that it was being exploited out in the real world, which means that could give the attacker access to everything on the device. And then finally, everyone's back to traveling. We're all going everywhere. We're hopping in airports. We're flying from Boston to Dublin to Paris to, wherever. And guess what? We're going to connect to the airport Wi-Fi, or we're going to be in a cafe in a city where I'm familiar with and say, oh, this looks legitimate. The fact is that unsecured Wi-Fi networks can actually be a way for attackers to just sit there and watch all your data roll through. They make it look legit. It may say, Boston Logan -Wi-Fi -secure or something like that. And then suddenly you're connected to a network that's sharing all of your data with somebody who's just sitting in their car in the garage. Not that difficult. All right, we're going to keep rolling here. So what did this all look like in 2023? These are some stats of what Lookout found. These are just a few of them. We blocked over 4 million phishing and malicious websites. If you include websites that were deny listed by administrators who are using Lookout, that number went to over 58 million. We detected 65,000 malicious applications, almost 60,000 man-in-the-middle attacks, which are those network-level attacks I just told you about. And hey, guess what? If Apple tells you that their devices are completely secure, I hate to say it, but they need to check themselves a little bit. There were over 260 iOS vulnerabilities disclosed over the course of 2023. Again, most of those were fixed in those software updates, but it highlights the importance of actually, saying yes when it says, would you like to update your software at night while your phone's plugged in and fix the Wi-Fi next to you in bed? Do it. It's an easy one. It's an easy way to keep yourself safe. And then finally, this is actually looking at, over the course of the last 4 years or so, the rate at which mobile devices have been targeted. So this is basically any device that has encountered at least one threat per quarter over the last 4 years. You can see that this has obviously trended upwards greatly over the last 4 years. Definitely a lot going on last year. It's dropped down a little bit since then, but we're seeing it start to peak back up. So it'll be interesting to dive into some of the reasons why. So I've spoken a lot about mobile phishing. It's important to understand that this is really, it's not just the biggest issue on mobile, but it's the one that we all see, right? Nick asked, hey, if we could all raise hands here, who's received a phishing text in the last few months? I would have said in the last few days. I get these all the time. People get them all the time. Your DHL package can't be delivered. Can you please tap this link to verify your address and log in? Things like that, where we're seeing such an increase of these attacks happening, even just on a quarterly basis. You can see some of the stats here that this is really a concern. And like I said, your credentials are now the keys to the kingdom. People don't try to force their way into company servers anymore. They target your credentials so that they can quietly enter your company's cloud apps, even if you just have a couple of them, and be able to snoop around, grab some data. And these attacks have gone from taking weeks or months to really just taking, maybe a few days, maybe a few hours. And we've seen them happen even more quickly than that. So one thing that we talk about here is this thing called the mobile kill chain. Now, this is a very scary sounding thing, but I promise you, this is an industry term. So basically, this is helping people understand really what the steps are to compromise and potential impact. I went through this briefly when highlighting the attacks on the Vegas casinos earlier. But basically, an attacker will send a phishing message, usually using social engineering, which means that they basically pull in some element of that person. So, like I said, it's as simple as going on LinkedIn and finding out who the CEO of your company is, right? Our CEO's name is Jim Dolce. The number of texts that I've gotten saying, hi, Hank, from an unknown number. I have Jim's number. It says, hi, Hank, this is Jim Dolce. I'm stuck in a webinar right now. Can you please let me know if you have a second to help me with something, right? If I didn't have his number, maybe I'd respond. Maybe, obviously the first thing to do is to reach out to him another way and say, hey, did you just text me? But these are ways that it's so simple for them to pull in some sort of personal element to make their attack that much more believable and build an element of trust. Step two can be, can be one of a couple things. One, it could either be much of what Nick was talking about earlier, the link that you tap. Let's just use the example of the DHL delivery that I used before. You tap the link and it says, please download the DHL app. Like, I already had the DHL app, but maybe it's an update. Okay, sure. You tap the link, it loads onto your device. It's actually a malicious application, and now the attacker can see everything going on your device. Or it leads to a malicious website. Again, these are built to look exactly like legitimate logins for all these platforms, solutions, whatever it may be. And then suddenly, like I mentioned, they have your credentials, they have a way in, they're moving around, they're looking at what types of data you have, they are locking things up, they're asking you for Bitcoin, the whole thing happens. And it's funny because while things like this final step may not necessarily happen on the mobile device, the idea of mobile ransomware is still pretty novel. We've seen a couple of cases of it over the last few years. But the fact is that the mobile device has become the entry point to the modern attack. And I can't stress that enough. Whether it's through a phishing attack, whether it's through downloading malware onto your device without you knowing it, and then being able to track everything that you do, whether it's to steal passwords, whether it's to see where data is stored. I can't stress enough that this is really why you need to think about the mobile device as a key part of your security strategy. It has become the single most important thing to protect for defending against initial access, which is often the most difficult step, and it's becoming easier to achieve every day. So we'll go through the product here real quick. So this is a look at the console that you would see. So on the left, you have the actual mobile application. As you can see, it's very simple, very straightforward, nothing too complicated about it. On the right is the administrator console. It helps you understand at a very high level what your, how many of your devices have been deployed, or how many of them deployed Lookout. If any of them present any risk, it allows you to dive into things like the protections you have in place, the ways that people are presented with and handle things like, let's say a piece of malware is detected on someone's phone. For the most part, almost 100%, obviously we can't say all, but almost 100% of those are actually are able to be self-remediated. The activation experience is very simple. Receive an email, click enroll devices. Each user will then go and download the Lookout for Work app, and then suddenly they're good to go. I'm also going to start moving a little quickly here. I think I got a little long-winded on a couple of things, and I apologize for that. So this is an example of what it looks like when someone tries to send you a phishing website when you have Lookout installed. As you can see, basically the person never even is able to access the website, right? It might be sent to them, they might mistakenly tap it, but when they do, Lookout steps in, protects you from that. There's not even the potential of your employee mistakenly sharing their login credentials with this person. When it comes to malicious applications, this is something where if you download an application that has somehow made its way either onto one of the app stores, or maybe it's sent to you through a third party, Lookout, because of the size of that data set that I mentioned earlier, will automatically detect when a malicious piece of software is downloaded onto the device. You can set policies that block that user from accessing any corporate applications until that malware is cleared from the device. Next, so root and jailbreak. This is basically something that gives the attacker full access to your device. This happens rarely, but is incredibly critical. It's one of those things that people always think will never happen to them until it does. And this is something that you just want to make sure that you are protected against. Again, looking at those software updates, making sure that your operating system is up to date. This is often one of the things that those updates protect against, right? Someone has recognized a vulnerability in let's just say some part of the operating system, and suddenly they can have full access. The unsecured network detection, like I mentioned, everyone's traveling, everyone's connecting to networks everywhere. This is very simple. The second you connect to it, Lookout will detect that it's malicious and notify you, and will block you from connecting to it, which in turn will block attackers from intercepting that network traffic coming to it from the mobile device. This is really important. I just want to go over this very quickly before we move into Q&A. The end user privacy piece. We understand that mobile devices are incredibly personal to everybody. Whether it's a work device, whether it's a personal device, we understand that. We collect the absolute minimum we need to deliver this very, very robust mobile security. We do not hold or pass end user personal data to the company admin. All of these details can be found in the application itself. It's very, very black and white, very clearly laid out. We hope you'll take a look at that. And then we have basically these 4 offerings. Like I mentioned, we have Lookout for Small Business, which is that more simplified user experience, as well as that more simplified administrator experience to make sure you can protect all your devices. And then we have Essentials, Advanced, and Premium, which essentially provide various levels of security. Premium really gives you access to the ability to proactively hunt for threats. It gives you access to all of our data, this whole console. It's very cool. It's also probably only really for people who have, a security operations team or something like that. What we see most of the kind of medium businesses going with is Advanced, because the important thing here is that it allows you to understand the vulnerability and patch management, as well as that more in-depth app analysis. And with Essentials, you do still get integration with a lot of other security tools. So lots to be seen here. It looks like we're getting a bunch of questions in. So I think, actually, this is perfect. So I see Kevin here says your Lookout and MDM, is it working right? Also the security overview, can you please share the correct links? Yes, Kevin, we will. We will absolutely do that. A question about our MDM integration, which I was just going to talk about here. Some folks do choose to leverage mobile device management. It's important to understand the difference between mobile device management and something like Lookout, which is mobile threat defense. To put it simply, it's in the name, right? MDM is a manager. It is not defense. It is not security. You cannot protect against phishing threats and app threats and all of that with MDM. It absolutely has its place. It makes it very easy to provision apps, enables a little bit more of that control over the device, but it will not protect you from mobile security threats. To give you a little bit of a visual here, on the left, we have threats, vulnerabilities, and configurations as 3 of the key vectors, as well as the ways that they are exploited, which is through web and content, malicious apps, risky networks, and device configuration issues. You can see here that the red is stuff that MDM does not protect against. The orange is stuff that MDM can kind of protect against. The green is the stuff they will protect against, right? Because they can do some stuff. Like I said, from a security standpoint, in the same way that if an MDM vendor were saying, hey, we're not a security solution, we'd probably look like this if they were trying to call us an MDM. So it's important to understand that every solution has its place, and ours is in security and MDM's is in management. We do work very, very well together. We are very happy to be partnered with a lot of MDM providers and be able to provide that really combined solution for a very, very robust management and security solution. All right, I think I've pretty much talked about all of this. But if you do use MDM, you can quietly deploy with 0-click. You can force activation on your employees, which honestly is sometimes the toughest thing to deal with. So if you are using an MDM, you will have an easier time with this, I can guarantee it. But we have plenty of ways if you don't use an MDM to ensure that your employees are activating Lookout once you've decided to use it. Whew, okay. I'm going to have a sip of water. Awesome. Nick, if maybe you want to look at a couple of the questions we've gotten so far.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Hank. Incredible insight there and really well explained. Getting everyone excited about cybersecurity. Such nerds. There are a couple of questions in the chat there. A couple of them probably all for you, Hank. Does Lookout have access to my personal information?
Nope. So as I mentioned, we do have very, very clear lines that we draw. We really, really make it very, like, seriously, this is something that in my time here has been so critical at Lookout. is making sure that we are not collecting that information. If an administrator gets an alert that one of their users had a phishing attack blocked or had a link blocked, the administrator doesn't know what link that is, right? It might be something you clicked by mistake. It might be something you clicked on purpose. But you know what the fact is that that's not the business of us or your administrator, right? If you download an application that maybe aligns to certain things that you find interesting, but you found on a Reddit page or in a Telegram channel or something like that, those are places where attackers will often, again, you think about social engineering. Hey, if you're interested in this thing, you should download this app because it gives you more access to it or more information about it. There may be a legitimate version of that app, but those are places where attackers will often leverage people's interests against them. And again, if you do that by mistake, it's not the business of your administrator or of Lookout to know. So we draw a very clear line there. I cannot stress it enough.
Okay, very good. Another question in there from Kevin. Do many of your clients use Lookout in BYOD deployments? In this scenario, does Lookout only have visibility into the secure enclave or the entire device?
Okay, so I definitely understand the first part of it. I understand most of the second part of it. And Kevin, if you'd like to reach out, I'm happy to go a little more in-depth with you on this. So we do have many customers who use that mobile application management deployment with BYOD devices. So for those who are maybe a little bit unfamiliar, that basically means that they are using personal devices for work, but that sounds like Kevin's organization maybe uses a couple of the solutions that allow you to not fully manage the device like a mobile device manager, MDM would, but manage the applications on the device, right? So in this scenario, and really in any scenario, so Lookout will be able to secure all parts of the device. So this is kind of an added bonus. And I think I saw another question come in. Yeah, can employees still use apps for personal use on their work devices that they have Lookout installed? So the short answer is yes. When you think about it, especially if you have a BYOD deployment, this is almost an added bonus for individuals because if I have BYOD, right? This is my personal phone. I use it for work. I get text messages. I get WhatsApp messages. I get, all these sorts of messages coming in from both a work and personal standpoint, but Lookout protects it all the same, right? Even if you deploy Lookout for the phishing and content protection and you want to make sure that it's because your employees don't give up their work login credentials. Well, guess what? If that person off hours, mistakenly clicks a link that asks them to reset their Gmail password, but it's actually a phishing link, they're still protected by Lookout. So personally, I see it as a benefit for your employees if Lookout is on the device, able to protect them against anything malicious that comes across, whether it's from a work or personal standpoint.
Okay, very good. One more question in there from Shane Cunningham. What would be the pros and cons if Lookout is compared with Intune?
Great question, Shane. We get this one a lot. So Intune itself, basically as a management solution, does, like I mentioned, does a lot of great stuff, right? All of these other solutions are great, but Lookout, and we have a ton of people. Actually, one of our biggest deployments, which is with, I think it's our Airbus deployment, which is well over 100,000 devices. I'm pretty sure they use Intune. If it's not them, I think it might be Schneider Electric. But regardless, we have case studies on both of those on our website if you'd like to read them. We are very, very frequently deployed alongside Intune to be able to really provide that airtight management and security combination. Like I said, the ability to basically force your employees to deploy, to deploy Lookout with an MDM, right? If you have the MDM on there, you say, hey, you can't access any work stuff until you deploy Lookout or other apps. That can be a very effective way to get people to do it. So I say that with a little bit of a smile on my face because it's a little bit funny to think about, hey, you got to do it. But the fact is, people resist change sometimes. So it's a really good way to make sure that you're getting people to fully secure those devices in every way you can.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again to everyone who has joined. We hope that this was helpful, and we also hope that this will be only the first of many of these types of events. So keep a lookout, excuse the pun, for the next one.
Never heard that one before.
Going forward, look, whether it's through Vodafone and Lookout or another vendor, I do hope that you'll evaluate your mobile security, because it is an incredibly important thing at the moment. Just because you're maybe not part of a large organization doesn't mean this isn't relevant. If your company is attacked and you can't be productive, then you're affected as well, right? But in the meantime, if you do have any questions on Lookout, feel free to reach out to your account manager. Alternatively, I'm sure we'll follow up with our own contact details as well, so you can reach out to us there. So thank you so much for your time, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.